Hi, this is TigerLily with another thought, this time chiming in about Officer Darren Wilson. There's been a lot of controversy over the tragic killing of Michael Brown. For the most part, liberals are claiming racism and police abuse, and neocons are claiming self-defense of Officer Darren Wilson, a poor cop who was just doing his job to contain a large thug. But aren't we missing a more fundamental point? Like, who started the confrontation that led to Michael Brown's killing? St. Louis County Police Chief John Belmer stated, "The genesis of this shooting incident was a physical confrontation during which Brown physically assaulted the police officer." Really? So the cop was just minding his own beeswax and a big black man attacked him at high noon? Well, here's another version. Dorian Johnson, a friend of Brown, was walking with Michael Brown in the street. Johnson said the cop pulled up beside them and said, "Get the fuck on the sidewalk." The young men replied that they were not but a minute away from their destination and they would shortly be out of the street. Wilson drove forward without saying anything further, only to abruptly back up, position his vehicle crosswise in the path, almost hitting the two men. We were so close, almost inches away, that when he tried to open his door aggressively, the door ricocheted both off me and Big Mike's body and closed back on the officer. So, if we were to be really honest, Chief John Blemmer, the genesis of this shooting incident was your officer ordering two individuals to get the fuck on the sidewalk. The only thing that matters from a moral standpoint, not necessarily a legal standpoint, is that Officer Wilson started the altercation. It was the cop who exercised his authority to order Brown and his friend to walk on the sidewalk. Think about it. Was the cop's order to get the fuck on the sidewalk a lawful order? Well, it probably was. But let's not forget that it was also a lawful order to force Rosa to get to the back of the bus. That doesn't make it a moral order. You'll recall Police Chief Thomas Jackson's explanation for why the cop confronted Michael Brown.
At this point, why did he stop Michael Brown?
Because they were walking down the middle of the street blocking traffic. That was it.
Blocking traffic? Really? I just found out that the killing took place at the 2900 block of Canfield Drive. Then I found this picture and saw that he was right in front of 2943 Canfield Drive. So I did a little Google aerial view, and all the streets look the same. No big roads, all quiet residential, except for when a cop comes by to harass people, patrol and do their job. Now, about the claim that Wilson suspected Michael Brown of a robbery, let's take a look at the timeline. On the date of the killing, at 11:48, Wilson responds to a call about a sick person. 3 minutes later, dispatch releases a report about the robbery. 10 minutes after that, Wilson shoots and kills Michael Brown. So the police chief admitted that the cop didn't know about the robbery.
It had nothing to do with stop this.
But according to the Wall Street Journal, hours later, Jackson told a slightly different story to CNN and NBC, saying that Wilson noticed Brown was carrying a box of cigars that had been reported stolen. Wilson, he said, initially stopped Brown for blocking traffic, but as he began driving past Brown, he noticed Brown was holding cigars. At that point, Wilson made the connection that Brown might have been involved in a theft that had just been broadcast on police radio, Jackson said. So, are we to believe that Officer Wilson even heard the report about the robbery when he was responding to another call at almost the exact time? And which story should we believe by the chief? Either Wilson knew about the robbery or he didn't. Next, it's been suggested that Michael Brown came from a dysfunctional family. Okay, no argument. But how many people are talking about Officer Wilson's family dysfunction? According to the New York Times, Officer Wilson had more than one stepfathers, was a mediocre hockey player in high school who, according to his coach, narrowly got enough ice time his senior year to earn a varsity letter. His mother was convicted for stealing and forgery. You know, to be honest, when I read this article, I felt a little sorry for Officer Wilson to know that his mom was like a total psychopath. Mrs. Finney was a neighbor victim of this lunatic mother. Finney recalled that during the time that Officer Wilson's mom was robbing her blind, she would come over and sit at my kitchen table to chat and say how she would help me with this terrible thing that was happening to us. Folks, this is some tragically sick behavior on the part of Wilson's mother. And this was his role model. I think it's important we don't lose sight of the bigger picture. Did the cop have the authority to order the boys off the road? Probably. Were the boys blocking traffic? Probably not. Did the boys mouth off to the cop? My guess is, since Michael Brown was high, yeah, he probably did. But does mouthing off to a cop justify the violent reaction that this cop had? Absolutely not. Did the cop suspect Michael Brown as being the robbery suspect? Doubtful. So did the officer act in self-defense? Just temporarily forget about laws for a moment and let's analyze this from a morality standpoint. I think it's safe to say that the definition of morality is to respect property rights and never initiate aggression. How does walking in the middle of a quiet residential street violate those principles? It doesn't. When Officer Wilson ordered to get the fuck on the sidewalk, did he violate any of those principles? Yes, it's fundamentally immoral to force someone to do something that isn't harming anyone else. I know you're probably saying, but it's against the law to walk on the street. So what? It's also against the law to drive 1 mile over the speed limit. It's a felony to open up junk mail you get addressed to someone else. It was also against the law for Rosa Parks to refuse to go to the back of the bus. So are laws moral? No. Again, was it moral for the cop to order the boys to walk on the sidewalk? No. He was showing power and domination over them. And that's what cops are trained to do. They don't give one crap whether laws are moral or immoral. Their agenda is people control. And if one person steps out of line and challenges their authority, they get their panties all in a wad and kill people. That's what happened here. This officer shouldn't have bothered the boys or should have politely asked them to walk on the sidewalk if he really was concerned about blocking traffic. It appears this killer cop's only agenda was to force 2 individuals into submission. And when they didn't obey their master, the master got pissed off and escalated the situation. Why? Because he can. You see, cops have badges and guns and magical powers that we ordinary people don't have. You or I, while carrying a gun like cops do, if we ordered someone to walk on the sidewalk, that would probably be coercion with a deadly weapon, and we might spend the rest of our lives caged and raped. But somehow, when a person in uniform with a badge does the exact same thing, they can murder the disobedient subject with complete immunity. So did Michael Brown's race factor into the cop's reaction? Maybe. But believe me, disobedience to cops' authority trumps just about everything else, including race. Cops see and react to disobedience. It's time to stop analyzing whether someone broke a law, and instead, let's analyze what purpose laws serve. Do laws keep us safe, or do laws keep them in control over us? Will Officer Wilson be convicted? Probably not. But I hope he and his enabling establishment are already guilty in the court of public opinion. Thanks for listening. This is TigerLily, asking folks to always question everything.